Ugandan athlete Rebecca Cheptegei dies after being set on fire by boyfriend. Ugandan Olympian Rebecca Cheptegei died in Kenya on Thursday, 4 days after being set on fire by her boyfriend, medics and Ugandan athletics officials said. It was the latest horrific incident of gender-based violence in the East African country, where activists have warned of a femicide epidemic. We have learned of the sad passing of our Olympic athlete Rebecca Cheptegei following a vicious attack by her boyfriend, the president of the Uganda Olympic Committee, Rukare, said in a post on X. We have learned of the sad passing on our Olympic athlete Rebecca Cheptegei, OLY, following a vicious attack by her boyfriend. May her gentle soul rest in peace, and we strongly condemn violence against women. This was a cowardly and senseless act that has led to the loss of a great athlete. Her legacy will continue to endure. According to police, a man identified as Cheptegei's partner, Dickson Ndiema Marangach, doused her with petrol and set her alight on Saturday at her home in Endebess in the western country of Trans-Nzoia. The incident took place just weeks after Cheptegei, 33, had taken part in the marathon at the Paris Olympics, where she was placed 44th. Cheptegei suffered burns to 80% of her body in the attack, the acting head of the facility where she was being treated told reporters on Tuesday. All her organs failed last night. A medic at the facility, the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, MTRH, told AFP on Thursday. A nurse who had been treating Cheptegei said she died at 5 a.m., which is 2 a.m. GMT. A medical counselor at the hospital had said on Wednesday that Cheptegei's condition had worsened and that she had developed a sepsis infection. Call for justice. Tributes poured in for the athlete. We are deeply saddened to announce the passing of our athlete, Rebecca Cheptegei, early this morning, who tragically fell victim of domestic violence, the Ugandan Athletic Federation said on X. As a federation, we condemn such acts and call for justice. May her soul rest in peace. The Kenyan National Olympic Committee said on X it extended its deepest condolences to the Ugandan sports community, family and friends of Cheptegei. Rebecca's talent and perseverance as Ugandan women marathon record holder and Paris 2024 Olympian will always be remembered and celebrated, it said. On behalf of Team Kenya, we extend our deepest condolences to the Ugandan sports community, family, and friends of Rebecca Cheptegei. Rebecca's talent and perseverance as Uganda's women's marathon record holder and the Paris 2024 Olympian will always be remembered and celebrated. Her untimely and tragic passing is a profound loss, and our thoughts and prayers are with you during these difficult times as we honor her legacy and advocate for an end to gender-based violence. Police said Marangach had sneaked into Cheptegei's home on Sunday afternoon while she was at church with her children. She lived with her sister and 2 daughters in Endebess, an area near the border with Uganda, her father Joseph Cheptegei had told the Kenyan media. I cried for help. The Standard newspaper reported that Cheptegei's daughters had witnessed the grisly assault. He kicked me while I tried to run for the rescue of my mother, it reported one of the girls as saying. I immediately cried out for help, attracting the neighbor who tried to extinguish the flames with water, but it was not possible, said the girl who was not being named. Marangach was also injured in the incident, sustaining 30% burns on his body. His current condition is not known. Police said there were a couple who constantly had family wrangles. The attack on Cheptegei had been thrown a spotlight on domestic violence in Kenya. Njeri Wamekwi, a feminist activist who founded Usikimye, an organization that fights gender-based violence, said of her death, Yes, this is femicide. We must end femicide. The assault comes 2 years after Kenyan-born athlete Damaris Mutua was found dead in Iten, a world-famous running hub in the Rift Valley. And in 2021, record-breaking Kenyan runner Agnes Tirop, 25, was found stabbed to death at her home in the Item in 2021. Her estranged husband is on a trial over murder and has denied the charges. Largest figures from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics published in January 2023 found that 34% of women in the country had experienced physical violence since the age of 15. In the meantime, Chinese President Xi Jinping pledges 900 billion mega assistance package for Africa. In a historic move, President of the People's Republic of China Xi Jinping has announced an unprecedented financial support package valued at 50.7 billion rand, around 904 billion rand, in different forms for the African continent when he met the heads of states on Thursday at the Forum in China-Africa Cooperation Focus Summit in Beijing. More than 50 African leaders, including President Cyril Ramaphosa and United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, are attending this week's China-Africa Forum. Xi told the auspicious opening ceremony of the forum at the Great Hall of the People that in the next 3 years, China will work with Africa to take the 10 partnership actions for modernization to deepen China-Africa cooperation and spearhead the Global South modernization. China and Africa account for the 1/3 of the world's population, and Xi said without China-Africa modernization, there will be no global modernization. The 10 partnership areas include cooperation on building a platform for governance experience sharing, a China-Africa knowledge network for development, and 25 centers on China and Africa studies. The second package focuses on China voluntarily and unilaterally opening this market wider, with some nations in Africa which enjoy diplomatic relations with China enjoying zero tariff treatment for 100% tariff lines. The partnership will also see China foster industry cooperation growth cluster with Africa, push forward the pilot zone for in-depth China-Africa economic and trade cooperation, and launch an African SMEs empowerment program. On behalf of China, Xi also committed to carry out 30 infrastructure connectivity projects in Africa, promote together high-quality Belt and Road cooperation, and put in place a China-Africa network featuring land-sea links and coordinated development. The Asian Economic Powerhouse also committed to assist in the development of the African Continental Free Trade Area and deepen logistics and financial cooperation for the benefit of trans-regional development within Africa. On another leg of the partnership, Xi announced that China supports Africa in hosting the 2026 Youth Olympic Games and also offering backing for the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations. On the Partnership Action for Health, Xi said China is ready to establish with Africa a hospitals alliance and joint medical centers. We will send 2,000 medical personnel to Africa and launch 20 programs of health facilities and malaria treatment, said Xi. We will encourage Chinese companies to invest in Africa's pharmaceutical production and continue to do what we can do to help with epidemic response. We support the development of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to strengthen public health capacity in all African countries. On Partnership Action for Agriculture and Livelihoods, Xi announced that China will provide Africa with RMB 1 billion yuan in emergency food assistance, send a battalion of 500 agricultural experts, and establish a China-Africa Agriculture Science and Technology Innovation Alliance. On the Vocational Education Cooperation Plan, China has promised to provide 60,000 training opportunities to Africa, mainly for women and youth, in vocational education. We will launch with Africa a cultural Silk Road program, as well as an initiative of cooperation on innovation in radio, TV, and audio and visual programs. The two sides have agreed to designate 2026 as the China-Africa Year of People-to-People Exchanges. On the 9th Partnership Action for Green Development, Xi said China is ready to launch 30 clean energy projects in Africa, put in place meteorological early warning systems, and carry out cooperation in disaster prevention, mitigation, and relief, as well as biodiversity conservation. We will create a China-Africa Forum on peaceful use of nuclear technology, establish together 30 joint laboratories, and collaborate on satellite remote sensing and lunar and deep space exploration. All this is designed to help with green development in Africa, said Xi. The 10th Partnership Action centers on common security, where Xi explains that China is ready to build with Africa a partnership for implementing the Global Security Initiative and make it a fine example of GSI cooperation. We will give Africa RMB 1 billion yuan of grants in military assistance, provide training for 6,000 military personnel and 1,000 police and law enforcement officers from Africa, and invite 500 young African military officers to visit China. The two sides will conduct joint military exercises, training and patrol, carrying out an action for a mine-free Africa, and jointly ensure the safety of personnel and projects, said Xi. To implement the 10 partnership actions, the Chinese government will provide RMB 360 billion yuan, which is $50.7 billion or around 904 billion rands, of financial support through the next 3 years. This breaks down into RMB 210 billion yuan of credit line, RMB 80 billion yuan of assistance in various forms, and at least RMB 70 billion yuan of investments in Africa by Chinese companies, said Xi. In addition, China will encourage and support Africa in issuing panda bonds in China to enhance our results-oriented cooperation in all areas. Xi said the friendship between China and Africa transcends time and space, surmounts mountains and oceans, and passes down through generations. He added that founding of FOCAC in 2000 was a milestone in the history of China-Africa relations. Over the past 24 years, especially in the new era, China has advanced forward hand in hand with our African brothers and sisters in the spirit of sincerity, real results, amity, and good faith, said Xi, who is also the General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, CPC Central Committee. We stand shoulder to shoulder with each other to firmly defend our legitimate rights and interests as once in a century changes sweep across the world. We get stronger and more resilient together by riding the tide of economic globalization, delivering tangible benefits to billions of ordinary Chinese and Africans, the president said. We share will and war in fighting natural disasters and epidemics together, creating touching stories of China-Africa friendship. We always empathize with and support each other, setting a stellar example of a new type of international relations. Xi added that thanks to nearly 70 years of tireless efforts from both sides, the China-Africa relations is now at its best in history. With its future growth in mind, I propose that bilateral relations between China and all African countries having diplomatic ties with China be elevated to the level of strategic relations, and that the overall characterization of China-Africa relations be elevated to an all-weather China-Africa community with a shared future for the new era, he said. Modernization is an inalienable right of all countries, but the Western approach to it has inflicted immense sufferings on the developing countries. Since the end of the World War II, Third World nations represented by China and Africa countries has achieved independence and development one after another, and have been endeavoring to redress the historical injustice of the modernization process, said Xi. As we are about to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, we are going all out to build a great modern socialist country in all respects of pursue national rejuvenation through a Chinese path of modernization. The Chinese leaders said Africa is also awakening again, and the continent is marching in solid strides towards the modernization goals set forth in the AU's Agenda 2063. He said China and Africa's joint pursuit of modernization will set off a wave of modernization in the global south and open a new chapter in our drive for a community with a shared future for mankind. As an African proverb goes, a friend is someone you share the path with. On the path of modernization, no one and no country should be left behind. Let us rally the more than 2.8 billion Chinese and African people into a powerful force on our shared path toward modernization, promote modernization of the global south with China, Africa modernization, and write a new magnificent chapter of development in human history, said Xi. Let us join hands to bring about a bright future of peace, security, prosperity, and progress for our world. Official figures show that China has remained Africa's largest trading partner for 15 consecutive years, and in 2023, China-Africa trade reached $282.1 billion, up nearly 11% compared to 2021, which demonstrates the strong resilience of China-Africa trade. For over a decade in a row, China has remained South Africa's largest trading partner. On the other hand, South Africa has now been China's largest trading partner in Africa for 14 years straight. In July, Ambassador of China in South Africa, Wu Peng, told IOL that from January to May this year, the unprecedented bilateral trade reached $23.5 billion. South Africa reports to China were $15.3 billion, up 14% year-on-year, the Chinese veteran diplomat said at the time. And that's it from INJIBS Africa. Stay tuned to our USA and political updates.